Hey folks, Stewart here. I've been having a fantastic time touring the Scottish Highlands with, amongst other things, the new Insta360 X3 camera. It's an impossibly practical solution for filming. Been a big fan of 360 cameras here for years. This new one is no exception. Let's get into it now. Just in case you're completely new to 360 cameras, because we have two lenses here on either side of the camera, we have full 360-degree spherical coverage. It records everything at all times. Now let me show you how I filmed the introduction. Press record. Done. Doesn't matter that the camera's not horizontal, vertical, none of that matters. It's recording everything. I then reframe in post and pick the shot that I want. This is unbelievably practical. And one of the byproducts of having two lenses that film everything is the overlap of those lenses allows the software to cleverly get rid of the selfie stick that I'm using to hold this camera. You can find creative ways to disguise the fact you're holding a selfie stick. So in this instance, it looks like someone is filming me. And in this instance, I have the extended selfie stick, so the camera's all the way up in the air. And again, it looks like I'm maybe being followed even by a drone. Or what about the sneaky hand in the pocket technique? I've got a few favourite developments on this camera, but one of the big ones is this huge touchscreen, and it's so nice to use. It's beveled at the edges here, so when you're swiping in on the menus, it's so smooth and so nice. The fonts that come up are massive, so when you're selecting your frame rates or your resolution, it's really easy to see what's going on. You swipe down to access your settings. Everything is big and accessible, and it's a huge change on all of Insta's previous cameras where the touchscreens were tiny and they were getting left behind a little bit, I have to say, by the peers in terms of the user experience. Well, that has been completely resolved with this massive touchscreen. The X3 is an evolution of the hugely successful and popular 1X and 1X2 cameras from Insta360. We now have a 1/2 inch sensor. Resolution is still 5.7K. Like its predecessors, the picture quality is good. Film with lots of light, and we do get a nice sharp image by the time we crop in and reframe our shots. So we're all on the same page with this concept of cropping and reframing. Here's a still photo taken by the 360 camera. This is the entire 2:1 aspect ratio equirectangular view captured by the camera. Now obviously we don't want to look at our photos or watch our footage in this aspect ratio, so we pick a slightly more natural field of view, and it's this cropping in that gives us the ability to rotate around and look at the world in a 360 view. Here in the context of this active HDR video clip, we can drag the mouse around on the screen while the footage is playing and just have a look at the kind of shots we want to create here in post in the free Insta360 studio. So I've got an idea for what to do with this clip. Let's go back to the start and pick our starting camera angle. Drag the screen down to our starting point. We look down at me, selfie stick through the sunroof technique. We hit the little keyframe button, and this is going to be the starting point for our shot. Now we play through a little bit, and I think we want to tilt up and rotate to the left to reveal that sun and the mountain. Let's do just that, hit the keyframe again, and in this instance we want a nice smooth transition between those 2 points. So we go to the fade in, fade out, and let's have a look at how that goes. Up it comes. Fantastic. Can you see the power of this, being able to reframe after the event? It just opens tremendous creative opportunities. Active HDR video mode really surprised me. It looks good and it's very usable in many situations. Here we have quite an extreme example of a sunset, and you can see the difference it makes on the sun there. Retaining more detail in the highlights, but particularly in the shadows. We've got more vibrant colours in the grass there. Same in this example as well. It's all down to personal taste, of course, but in this example I think the camera's done a very good job of pulling more detail and colour out of the shadows in those trees. There's no free lunch, however, because active HDR requires full daylight to make sure we don't get too much noise in those boosted shadows. More experienced filmmakers will find full manual exposure controls in the regular video mode. Here in full auto, the shot looks pretty great, I have to say. But make a stylistic choice to go for a more silhouetted look. We can pull that EV value back, or you could dial in full manual exposure settings, and we get something a little bit more like this. The X3 can take 72 megapixel raw photos. Pretty spectacular resolution. One of my favourite photo modes, however, is HDR, high dynamic range. We can take up to 9 photos and then use the software to bracket those photos all together, squeeze all that dynamic range out, take the best of the highlights and the shadows. You can set a timer of anywhere between 3 and 15 seconds. I'd recommend, even if you're standing right next to the camera, use a timer of 3 seconds, press the button, then let go. Try and minimize the shake going through the camera. Let's jump into the Insta360 studio and check out the result. Here you can see HDR DNG 60 to 68. That's the 9 raw photos that are now going to be composited together. Wow, there you go. It's fair to say that is an HDR image. That is zingy, that's for sure. Now, of course, you can edit that down a little bit yourself in post if you want to. Alternatively, mindful that we have the 9 original files, you can pick, let's say, the middle one and have a go at just editing the single raw file instead. We've got a new 4K single lens mode that can be activated by pressing the right hand button under the screen. There you see it switches to the lens facing me. Press it again, it switches to the lens facing away from me. Insta360 have given us 4 fields of view to play with: action, ultra wide and linear. Based on our tests, action and wide give us the most natural looking fields of view. On the ultra and linear fields of view, you can see the distortion around the edge of the frame as that defisheeing takes place. Here we've compared the action field of view with the wide angle lens on our iPhone. Punch in 4 times and you can see the Insta is producing a sharp image both in the center and around the periphery of the frame when shooting in action mode. For comparison, we've overlaid the iPhone's normal camera to show you just how wide the Insta camera is. It goes without saying that all these gadgets and modes are no subject for actually knowing how to use your camera. Now, I've turned the camera around, so we've got the sun not behind me, but coming in from the side, and it's illuminating this landscape beautifully. We're on the 4K single lens here, action field of view. This will be the best quality image that you can get from that camera. Oh, landed in the grass. That was lucky. Now's a good time to talk about these exposed lenses. One of the drawbacks of this camera is that those lenses protrude and are quite vulnerable if they get scratched. Now, fortunately, things fell beautifully into the heather. Definitely something to keep in mind though, depending on how you plan on using these cameras. Lenses aside, the X3 undoubtedly has a rugged build quality. The rubberized coating makes it grippy in the hand, and it's waterproof to 10 meters. Welcome to my audio recording booth. A very controlled environment here. The camera's about 18 inches away from my face and the on-camera microphones are doing a fantastic job. I've got them set to stereo. That gives the best quality of audio. We do have a wind reduction option in there and a directional microphone option in there, but they both deteriorate the quality of the audio a little bit. Nice options to have. If you're filming in a very controlled environment like this, the on-camera audio is going to do a great job. If, on the other hand, the camera is further away from you, then, well, the physics can't really be avoided on that one. It's good to have an on-subject source of audio recording. You are now listening to the audio from the Insta360 X3. You are now listening to the audio from the DJI microphone. Just wanted to do a little audio test with a little bit of wind here. So we've got this set to stereo. There's no auto wind reduction in here. It's blowing a bit of a breeze into my face here. Not much at this exact moment in time. Let's wait a second for the wind to get up. Okay, that's a gentle breeze coming in now. How's it competing with the sound in my voice? We've got quite a consistent, steady breeze now. No wind reduction. I'd say the wind condition is pretty similar right now. I've got the wind reduction on. As you can see, the camera's about 1 meter away from my face. Could you realistically vlog in a situation like this and get high quality audio? Let's find out. Being a 3rd generation product, the X3 is a very refined product. I didn't find any glitches or any bugs or any issues whatsoever with this camera. It has been a joy to use from start to finish. Added to that, the app is very, very established and has a bewildering array of functionality, all kinds of cool modes and options for you to play with to your heart's content. In the shot lab, you can lose hours of your time mucking about with all these effects. I like the lightning bolt one where it makes it look like you're going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But of course, this is a highbrow filmmaking channel for discerning individuals, so we don't get carried away with any of that nonsense. The one thing I absolutely do love doing in the Insta360 Studio desktop app is retiming the footage that we get from the car. You can speed it up to 1632 times, add some motion blur thanks to the app, and it gives you this buttery smooth, glossy kind of roller coaster feel as you're driving through some of these spectacular landscapes. Mindful of this camera's intended market, are there any obvious downsides? Well, for me, the one thing that stands out is the lack of a slow motion frame rate at the full 5.7K resolution when shooting 360 video. I think given the intended market and some of the use case scenarios for this camera, a slow motion frame rate would certainly be appreciated. Me mode, 30 frames per second, 1080p. It's supposed to track me as I swing this thing around. How's it doing? Certainly save you a little bit of time doing your tracking in post in the app or in the Insta Studio desktop software. Whoop! Whoa! Should you buy this camera? Well, it depends what you already own. If this is your first foray into the world of 360, then yes, absolutely. This is a great little device. You'll have a lot of fun with it, and you can get some really good results out of it, as we've hopefully shown you in this video. If we're talking about upgrading from the One X2, I think it's a slightly more difficult case to make. We have some really nice added functionality in the form of that big touchscreen. There are some nice new functions in there for sure, but I think I'd be looking for a bigger step change in terms of resolution, maybe sensor size, extra frame rates, if I was investing my own hard-earned cash in a new camera. But anyway, as I say, it's completely dependent on a case-by-case scenario and how much money you have in your bank account. We just want to inspire you, show you what you can do with these devices, and hopefully we've given you a flavour with this camera in this video. Anyway, pleasure to talk to you as always. Stay tuned for future content, and we will see you next time.